I want to start by talking about your role in the formation of the government of the 90s, the Conservative government. In 1990, you stood for party leadership, winning about 40% of the vote in the first ballot, denying Margaret Thatcher the necessary 15% margin to remain in power. A second ballot was cast, before which Thatcher resigned, and John Major won 49% of the vote, later running unopposed in the third ballot and becoming the new Conservative leader. My question is, what prompted you to run that day? And did you think you'd get to a second ballot or even win?
Well, the resignation of the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Geoffrey Howe, who was then leader of the House of Commons, was the trigger that began the process, and he ended his speech with the words, "Others will now determine how to take this matter forward." As I heard him say it, I knew that the focus of attention would switch to me. And so I was left with a difficult choice, but I felt that there was a very strong feeling that Mrs. Thatcher had to go. The poll tax was destroying the Tory party, and her European views were quite unacceptable to large numbers of us. So I agreed to put my name forward. I got a very considerable amount of support, but not enough. Part of my problem undoubtedly was the feeling that one had been disloyal to the party, and therefore there was a consolidation in favour of an alternative. The alternative was clearly represented by John Major, who in the event won. I think that it was pretty inevitable that I would actually never win unless Margaret had voluntarily gone. Then I think I would have won. But if there's an old saying that he who wields the knife never wears the crown.
Fair enough. How would you have reformed the party had you won?
Well, I would have got rid of the poll tax, which is, of course, what we did do, and that was fundamental. And I would have pursued British self-interest in Europe with a sense of purpose and vision, as opposed to sort of criticising endlessly to try and shift the blame for things that were going wrong from the domestic scene to the European scene. But I would also have gone for what was to happen much later, a much bigger devolution agenda, switching power back from London to the big urban centres of the country. So that would have been a major part of my agenda, which it subsequently became, because David Cameron invited me to write a report on this whole matter, which the government then adopted and in part have implemented.
I want to go back to the regional development aspect later on. For now, I just want to tread a little longer on the leadership bid. I think you touched upon this earlier, but so you won 40% of the vote in the first ballot. You got 35% in the second, with a surprising number of MPs rallying behind John Major. Why did those 20 MPs support you in the first ballot, but not in the second? And
it's I mean, I don't know, because I haven't asked them all. But there were several who knew that Margaret had to go, who supported me on the first ballot. And I can remember one very clearly coming to me and saying, "Look, I supported you on the first round. John Major is one of my oldest friends. I'm going to switch." Perfectly honourable, and I said, "Well, I fully understand." So there would have been some who used me as a stalking horse to bring about change, but they always had someone else in mind.